It's the SDG Podcast. Before we get started, you can check us out on the web at solutiondesign.com/podcast or find us on all the social medias, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Solution Design Group. We're starting. Hey, another podcast. Podcasters, say hello and introduce yourselves so we know who you are.
Hi, I'm Chad Jutner.
Peter Lawrence.
And I'm Kyle Bacher, and Chad is joining us. He is our AWS solution lead as well as being a Java developer. I don't know. I'm of the opinion Chad can do anything. We have another Chad Jutner. Chad,
also a Java developer.
So we're talking about what the solution lead does with AWS.
So here's the thing. So we got so SDG. I'm excited about this, right? We've defined new, not necessarily a role. Chad, how would you describe it? Kind of like an additional responsibility along with the consultant role. Is that fair?
Yep, I think that's right. Just kind of some extracurriculars.
Yeah, so we've identified extracurriculars. We've attached a role to that called the solution lead. And we've already had one solution. Well, we have Peter from the Microsoft practice. Hi, Peter.
Hello.
And we have Mr. LaVigne now, who is our solution lead for AWS. And what are the other ones we have? We have Microsoft, AWS. Our friend Jason Lamer,
I'm guessing,
is our Java solution lead.
Java.
Akila is our QA solution lead. Do we have a front end solution lead? Peter, Chad. And so we were thinking it would be wonderful for us to get all the solution leads in one at a time, talk about what they're excited about for the thing they're the lead for, right? Like, what are you excited about with AWS? What does your role entail? What are these new extracurriculars entail for you? And then we'll discuss happy hour later, but that's the gist of it.
4 minutes. It only took us 4 minutes to get to happy hour.
Good. Usually it takes us a little bit to get to the happy hour discussion, and halfway in to get to the swearing that our friend Emily has to cut out. We'll get there eventually.
So Chad L. Okay, LaVigne. All right, LaVigne, fill it.
Mr. LaVigne.
What's the? We have been really digging deep into AWS and certification, getting certifications, and we have an AWS partnership. There's a lot going on in that space. What are you kind of focusing on right now?
Yeah, quite a few things. So there's this new solution lead role and there's a list of things. I don't have the list. I asked Matt for it, but I didn't get it. I saw it once upon a time, but I can tell you off the top of my head several things that I'm working on right now. You mentioned the certifications. That's part of it. I mean, as far as like, we just need a certain number of certified people to be an AWS partner. So we just actually elevated our level of partnership earlier this year. And part of that is we have to have at least 3 professional certified people. I think we have like half a dozen now. And so that was kind of a big milestone for us. So that's cool. And that's, not obviously me as a solution lead guy, right? It's just all the consultants involved in kind of making that happen. So that's been probably the last 4 years. I think we probably became in like 2019 is when we became a partner, something like that.
And those certifications, they're not a cakewalk. They're not easy. Peter, how long did you study for the one you got?
I studied for the 2 that I have.
The 2, sorry.
Yeah, it's cheating. I got an associate and then I got the pro version of it. But I studied as long as I possibly could. I took the test on the last day that particular version 1 was offered, and it was. I was glad I was on the bench for that because it made it a lot easier to really power through it.
Like an hour, 40 hours?
More like probably 100, 120 hours at least. Is what it took for me to go from sort of raw average fly-by-night AWS user to solution architect level, answering the pro questions and going through the 3-hour test.
Cool. All right, back to Chad LaVigne.
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree. There, especially those professional level certifications. So there's sort of that associate level that comes before that. And then that professional level is when we need at least 3 of those to be an advanced tier partner. So we had a bunch of people step up and get those done. So that was awesome. And yeah, they're tough. The professional ones especially are legit. It's a huge spectrum of services that you need to know in AWS and pretty deep in a lot of areas as well. So, and And it's like one of these super mentally taxing things, right? Like it's because it'll be, multiple choice, but each answer is like a long paragraph, and there's 6 of them, and they're all very similar except for a couple words. And you have, 75 questions, and you have 3 hours to do it. So you got to kind of, get through it quick. And so there's a lot to it.
All the answers are right. They're just not as right.
Yeah,
it's the best answer.
So it's legit. Actually, this was one thing we just did recently. I think it was on Tuesday. We did like a roundtable discussion of, a panel of people that had passed professional certs, and not just in AWS, Azure as well. And just with like advice and lessons learned on how to take a certification exam, how to prepare for it, things like that. Just to share with other people, make it maybe a little less intimidating to tackle that and stuff like that, because it can be a lot to try to prep for that, especially if you're working your 40 or more at a customer.
So that's going on. Now, what are you doing in like the AWS space for the customers right now?
Yeah. Oh, there's so much going on. I'll try to go through the list right now specifically. So first of all, there's this thing called a competency, and AWS provides these to partners. You have to basically answer a bunch of questions and kind of fulfill some requirements to get a specific competency in an area. So for example, I've helped with a couple of them. We have our Lambda one and our API gateway. Those are 2 services in AWS where we are, we have our competency as a partner in that, which basically says AWS agrees that you know what you're doing in this area. So we're working through those. We're working through a bigger initiative right now. It's another competency, but it's the application modernization competency. It's part of this program they have called Migration Acceleration Program, MAP. And so that's a really cool program because it might help us win more business, because what it is if, you get this competency, AWS will provide funds to help fund your customers' projects. So we've got maybe customers that are planning to do a project, but they're kind of holding on to their money right now for whatever reason. And, having AWS step in and offer to help fund that project could be pretty big for us. And it's a pretty significant help that they'll do. So we're working on that right now.
When you think about that too, like they actually fund part of the project. I know a little bit more about the MAP program because you and I are working together on one of the questionnaires for that, right? That is the thing that we're doing.
Yep, Chad and I are working on that together. It's 2 Chads on one project.
Yeah. Oh my God, you should be so lucky. But it's actually a really cool. It's a really cool thing, right? Because AWS, once you get that competency, it might get us new business, which we love, right? We absolutely love new business because those projects are really, really fun. They're super challenging. I have a first-hand experience with how challenging they are, but they are a lot of fun. You learn a lot of things that you wouldn't on a lot of other types of projects. These modernizations are great. I had a question about, so going back to the Lambda and the API gateway competency, was the process for that pretty similar to what we're doing for the MAP competency, or is it a little different? Because the MAP competency is like, hey, show us evidence of this type of work and this type of work and this type of work. And is if we want to prove competency in Lambda or API gateway, and I'm assuming there's probably competencies for other like tiers of services, right? Maybe there's going to be an AI competency and all these other types. Is it a similar process for us to go through? Like, walk us through like a technology competency compared to the MAP thing is more a overall like SDLC lifecycle competency, not just a like, hey, these guys know this one tech stack, right? Within AWS.
Yep. So funny enough, it's surprisingly similar. It sounds odd, right? Because it seems like just your competency with a specific service probably doesn't add as much value as a partner as like this whole app migration thing. But it was a similar process, just not quite as involved, but we still had to provide like 3 customer case studies where we used that service, how we used it, and answered very similar list of questions like you and I are answering for the app migration one, just specific to API gateway and stuff. So it's a little more pointed, it's not so broad as the app modernization one, because that one also covers not just specifics of, do you know what you're doing with this technology and how to apply it and when to apply it, but also project type things, right? Like, did you, the app modernization one dives into all those business things about how did you make the business case for the customer? Did you show them total cost of ownership before and after migration and what the ROI would be and all those things? So like the technology ones don't have that stuff necessarily. It's a little more technical. And there's also some ancillary things with the app modernization one that you have to do in addition, right? A good example is we have to have things outside of the customer case studies stuff that we're doing that shows that we know what we're talking about. So a good example is that we're publishing a blog post, I think today, that I wrote that kind of talks all about app modernization and how we do it. It talks about basically 5 essential services for app modernization, that are kind of our bread and butter. And so there's things like that you have to do in addition to just answer the questions about the technology. Does that answer your question?
I think so. Was there any reason why Lambda and AWS Gateway were chosen as sort of the starting points? Were those just easy, low-hanging fruit, or?
Good question. So I think it's things we're good at that we've done a lot. The biggest thing is you need 3 projects to provide as case studies for these, right? So we picked out what are things we've used at customers, and we need to talk to that customer about it and stuff. Like, hey, we're going to submit this to AWS that we did this. There's other ones that we're looking at doing soon. The typical services that you use all the time that most of our customers will, stuff like RDS.
What is Lambda? What is RDS? And what is the gateway thing you were talking about?
Sure. So RDS is their relational data service. So that's their managed service for relational data, where you can essentially stand up like MySQL or Postgres or whatever different, several different database vendors are supported. And it's managed service where you aren't responsible for patching the hardware and stuff like that.
Right.
And so Lambda is their serverless. So that's like their, if in Google it's called, their cloud functions, that's what Lambda is in AWS. So it's you don't worry about servers at all. You just write code that gets deployed. And then API Gateway is usually kind of the front door for if you're standing up APIs in the cloud. So that's kind of your choke point for security and stuff like that. If you're running like a microservice architecture with a bunch of services, they all run behind this gateway. So it kind of gives you one entry point into all those services. So we use that one a ton because we do tons of API work, right?
Yeah, I've used, so fun fact, previous gig, we were a very, very early adopter of API Gateway. And if the AWS folks are listening to this, I love you now. I hated it. Like if you use the alpha version of any of their services, the cool thing about AWS is when you're using these early versions of any of their services, they become very active partners with you. Like, hey, if you're having this, if you're having an issue, like you'll submit a support request, and like one of the actual dev team members will get back to you and he's like, dude, I never thought of that. So, well, how do you think this should work? What's your use case for it? And then you actually can have a conversation with them about like, yeah, I thought it was going to do this, but you guys, this completely different thing. So if you ever have the opportunity to become to use some of their brand new services in production, you will likely end up talking to like the product owner of that service or one of the senior devs of that service, and your ability to influence direction on some of the stuff that they're doing is it's there. It's non-0% chance that you will be talking to somebody, and not just some offshore, like not just some support person that says, "Did you reboot it?" So
flowchart, yeah.
Yeah. So that's awesome.
So we talked a little bit about partnership and things like that. Are there other sort of AWS-y things that you're doing? You wrote a blog post. Is that part of your role as your new role?
Well, it was. Yeah, that one specifically was because it had to do with getting that competency for, application modernization. Other partner related things in this role, I guess, would be like right now we're working on a case study that we're doing, to be published on AWS for like the customer that I'm working with, one of the customers I'm working with right now, that just kind of shows how we used AWS for them. And, they're a smaller customer, so it shows how they were kind of able to attain an enterprise grade application that 15 years ago would not have been possible for a company that size, right? They can scale globally and things like this. And so it just kind of speaks to that, the case study does. And it's kind of, just one more feather in the cap, I guess, as far as us being an AWS partner and showing how that helps us, but also helps our customers, right?
Right. Yeah. There's huge value for the customer working through, a partner that has that relationship established. You have a better conduit kind of to AWS through the partnership.
For sure. And I think it gives the customer a certain amount of confidence that you've done it before and you've been successful with it, and they can trust that you kind of know what you're doing. And that's what these competencies are all about too, right? Especially the technical ones. That really is just saying we've done this before and we know how to use it and when to use it. So that's part of it, Peter. I guess other things I can think of, we're just now trying to become an official well-architected partner, which there's a few requirements for that. Part of it is you have to have 2 people that have their professional architect certification, and they have to go through like a technical training, 2 of them. So I'm one of those people. We've got one other person that's going to do it here. And then as part of that, there's some sales things we need to do in addition to that to kind of become a well-architected partner. But then we've just got our first customer that I'm going to put through their well-architected review. That's coming, and we'll have to do a lot of them.
That should be super fun, just to kind of knowledge that you got and apply it and sort of see how it bears up under real world conditions.
What are the components of that, Chad? Like if you're gonna go into a customer and you're gonna do the well architected review for them, right? So what are some of the check boxes that you're gonna check off as you go in there? I'm assuming it's like log retention stuff and instrumentation maybe and all that. Are you using reserved instances? Are you not? Like, is that part of it, or is it more in depth than that? I imagine it's way more
it's pretty thorough. So what they have is it kind of starts high level and gets more granular, and they have 6 pillars that they call them. And under each pillar is a series of questions that you walk the customer through. And they've gotten to where it's much easier to conduct this review because now they have a well-architected tool that you can go through that kind of goes through the list, right, of questions that you ask them. And so the pillars are things like security, reliability, cost optimization, performance, things like that. And so you have specific questions in each of those categories that you walk through to, operational excellence. The first one I can think of is, are you using infrastructure as code? If not, what can we do to do that? And things like that. And so you just kind of walk them through these things, and you try to find these items that are like high risk or whatever that you should really address. And it's kind of an ongoing thing. You don't really do that review and then you're done. You never do it forever. It kind of lives on, and you're supposed to reevaluate in the future, every 6 months or a year or whatever it is, because it's a moving thing, right? Like, this software is living in the cloud and things change and the products evolve. So you kind of revisit that and try to make sure that you're on the right track. So we're just getting into that. Like I said, we're doing the first customer here. I'm probably going to do it next week. Just got them signed up. So that's kind of exciting, a new area for us. And this will be our first official one. I guess another part of that role that I have as a solution lead is I get a lot of these. I just finished one up, smaller gigs with a customer where they're like, hey, can you come in and just kind of evaluate our cloud footprint and tell us what you see? We're worried. We're bringing on new customers and we're going to grow really fast next year, and we're worried we won't scale. And are there areas we can save money and things like that? And so I just finished up one of those where I kind of go through their environment, look at how they're doing things, and come up with a list of ideas that, hey, maybe we should think about these things to either save money or tighten up security or be more scalable, things like that.
So Chad's well-architected review.
Well, and this one was in addition to that, because that was actually a customer who had done a well-architected review with AWS, not even with a partner. And they said, we kind of just want a third party to come in and just tell us what you see. Because we have ideas, but your opinion will help us get approval to get funding to fix these things if you're agreeing with what our, architects and DevOps people are seeing. Sure. And that's really what it was. It really was, you meet meet these guys, you become friends, and hey, we all see the same stuff. I see these things, because I came back with my list and they're like, we also think those things. So it was really more of that and there were some new things that they were like, oh, that, yeah, I didn't think of that. That was a good idea. And so then kind of the next phase is, we bring in a team to help implement that stuff.
Awesome.
So who's a candidate for that well-architected thing and the app modernization? Like what situation would you be in where you really want to do that?
Yep. So I think it's two different customers, actually. So the well-architected review is somebody who's already there. They're already in the cloud. At least that's how this customer is that I'm going to be working with this next week. And they want to know, where did we get it wrong? And we're a little nervous about security. Maybe they haven't done a lot of that, or they're having performance problems and they haven't done a lot of that, and things like that. So that's kind of customer already in the cloud. Now the app modernization one, this is people that are, a lot of times maybe still running on-prem with apps that have been around for a while, and they want to move to the cloud, and they're maybe not sure how to do it or what flavor of migration they should do, right? Because there's the different types, right? You can just kind of lift and shift it. Or you can kind of re-platform as part of your move to the cloud to try and take advantage of some things in AWS where you don't have to manage hardware as much. Or maybe they have, the time and budget to re-architect the whole thing and move to more of like a cloud native solution. And that's a more costly thing to do, but a lot of times it will solve maybe a lot of problems or help them save more money, things like that. So that's what those migrations are all about, is kind of inventory your on-prem apps, and kind of pick some candidates that would be good ones to migrate, and then evaluate what type of migration do we want to do here. And then obviously do it, right? So Chad knows all about that.
I know way too much about that. No, it's a joy and a pleasure, honestly, to do those projects. I'll double down on it. I mean, it really is. Like, these modernization projects they're incredibly challenging. But if you're still into what we're doing, I mean, I've been doing this job for 25 years now. I'm still learning new things on this project by way of integrating legacy systems with cloud and back and forth and gateways. All the stuff that Chad's talking about right now is super relevant to a lot of these modernization projects, and it's fun, but it's.
But if they don't do that modernization, they're going to eventually fail out of this, right? Their support, won't compile anymore. Those kinds of things that Power Builder may go away, super supported. VB has changed quite a bit in its day. Access has changed a lot. One of these days, Excel might change. Who knows?
I think it's moving something to a platform, a modern platform. So you get the benefits of the platform, but you also get the benefits of the talent pool that's able to support that platform, right? Like it's
right.
Not a lot of folks are really, really supporting C++ applications anymore, right? In an enterprise.
Yep.
So, it makes a lot of sense to move that to modernize that. And if you're going to modernize it, why wouldn't you just move it to the cloud if that's where you have other stuff? And and you get the benefits of a really deep talent pool, incredibly talented developers, a whole refresh of the code base. It makes a lot of sense for a lot of reasons, but you're going to find so many monsters and skeletons in closets. It's a lot to take on. So don't let that scare you off, though. If you have the opportunity to do one of these projects, absolutely dive in and talk to me and Chad first.
That's right.
About what we've come across.
I look at those factors of being on older technology, older apps. It's like the desire for people to work on that stuff is just not there. Finding people that really are excited about going in and working on a old server, things like that. Your confidence in your technology. It's like, if this breaks, if something happens, it'll be bad. Let's hope.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, just the security. It's like you don't have to have a entire floor of security people. There's just so many reasons.
I would actually submit that a legacy C++ application is probably 10 times more secure than any modern application, just because nobody knows how the hell
There's 1/100th of the number of programmers that could actually do any damage to you.
Yeah. All right. So we covered, I think, basically everything that's involved in your solution lead role. All the extracurriculars that you get the joy of performing.
There's a few more, I guess, right? But some of these are kind of things that part, I think, of this solution lead role being introduced was just allocating time for it, right? Because there were things that we already kind of were doing. I think of things like pre-sales efforts or writing SOWs, or I do tons of estimates, things like that. Interviews, right? Interviewing new candidates and stuff like that. And so that was part of it is, hey, let's block off a little bit of time for this and actually make it official instead of just having to do it in off hours all the time. So
yeah. All right. So all that behind us, with AWS, with everything that's going on in AWS, I mean, the ecosystem there is consistently, it's just exploding like every single day. If I just go out to the AWS console and I log into my personal account, it seems like every day I see a new service. And I'm like, oh, what the hell? Would you guys just it'd be awesome if they're just like, hey, we developed everything now. We're done, right? We're going to just not do anything for a year or two, right? Just let you guys get caught up. What are they doing today that has you the most excited?
Well, I think all the AI ML stuff that's coming out, right? I mean, that is moving so fast that nobody can keep up with it. Yeah.
I was hoping you were going to say that because I'm that's the same. It's the same for me, right? Like all of the pre-trained, they've got a whole slew of pre-trained models for you to use. They've got, what is it? The Bedrock. Am I saying it? Is that what it's called? I'm doing it from memory.
Yeah.
Their Bedrock service. They've got so much stuff going on around that they just wanted to catch up really, really fast. And so they threw a lot of resources to get caught up to what, Hugging Face and OpenAI and all the other players are doing. But it's actually kind of cool to see them do it because they do it with all of their training and support and everything else behind it. And I'm talking way too much. I should let you talk. Sorry.
No, I guess I basically just agree, right? I'm just kind of anxiously watching and waiting to see where this all goes, right? We're slowly seeing this introduced into kind of everything, right?
All right.
I opened up Slack yesterday and it was like, hey, this is now AI powered search or whatever. It's like every tool is starting to add little things like that. I think we're going to see more and more of that.
Yeah. Tell the caveman what AI/ML is.
Oh, artificial intelligence or machine learning.
I thought it was like markup language. Because I've never used it before. So
you need to use more AI/ML in your web pages, Kyle.
I do. Yeah. Does it tie into SharePoint online?
I'm sure SharePoint has a AI, and if it doesn't, it will tomorrow. That's for
right.
Sure. Guaranteed.
I should check. JetBrains, our de facto IDE for Java development. They have AI now integrated into IntelliJ. I don't have it yet because you have to sign up for. It's a preview, so you have to sign up for the beta access. I still don't have it, but I've seen some of the demos of it, and it looks incredible.
Microsoft has been doing that for a year or more. That they've pumped in some AI into their stuff. I've been using it in the client that I'm at, and I'm like, it just pops up the line of code that I was going to type anyway, and I just go to the end of it and hit, tab over it, and now the line of code that I was going to type is there already. So it's amazing stuff for sure.
Yeah, I think that stuff is going to make developer productivity go through the roof.
I tell you, for customers, it's going to be awesome because it's like you're speeding up the development time on all this stuff with those capabilities.
I have a whole rant about that. If you look at the delivery of a product, right? Multiply a developer's ability to deliver a given feature by 2 or 3 or whatever, right? The product development time still kind of stays the same because a lot of the time is spent in, delivering exactly what your product owner asked for, and then him realizing, well, that's not what I meant. It's constantly iterating over variously detailed requirements and actually delivering a given feature and being more productive as developers, I think helps a lot for startups and individual like side projects and everything else. Enterprise development being faster, it's going to help. But the productivity gains, I think people are going to start realizing, aren't necessarily they weren't needed on the development side. The productivity gains are going to be realized when we can accelerate requirements gathering and infrastructure instantiation and all of the things around that. I can select all from a database really, really fast, and I can constrain that by whatever constraints we need. AI is going to help me write that statement a little bit. It's going to create all my boilerplate code a lot faster, but the requirements that I'm given aren't going to get better right away with AI. But I'm excited for them to try. I really am. And the tools around it are fun.
Yeah, if they can make them gather the requirements more quickly. And the part I'd really like to see is more accurately, right? When AI gets to the point of saying, are you sure that's what you want? Like I just had a meeting like that right before this one with a customer where we were talking about how, well, we got into it. And I know you said you want this, but I think it's actually this other thing. So yeah, if you could catch that stuff further upstream before you actually dive into building it.
Even, like it's what they want and some extra, on top of it. Like there might be suggestions or things like that come up that can improve the quality of what the requirement needs to be. Yeah. So solution lead role, what do you do kind of role? What's that doing for us?
Well, hopefully it's helping generate business, right? Because we're all the things we talked about here today, a lot of them are about building up our partnership with AWS that ultimately, hopefully, lands us more customers that want to build in AWS.
Yeah.
And then it's also, there's kind of a second part of being a resource for people about AWS things, right? So there's maybe consultants that are getting on a gig that haven't done as much AWS and all. That's another part of it, right? Is, their CM might reach out and say, hey, can you, kind of be a sounding board for this person on this project, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I think it's boosting our organizational knowledge, where we can support each other with, and, we have developers out there that have, you as a resource, but you're also kind of paving the way for more kind of learning and diving deeper and getting that, partnership, a better path to AWS. I see a lot of benefits. What helps us is really helping our customers.
Yeah, that's the goal, right?
Yeah.
And most of this stuff, Chad, you were already doing before. You were already doing technical interviews. You were already doing, estimates and writing up statements of work and all those other fun things. And it's just nice to have a little bit of, extra sticker on your name tag that kind of says that you're doing all those things and helping with that, right?
Yeah, for sure. Just putting a label on it, I guess, as far as we're going to allocate a little time for this is I think all we're saying with that solution lead role is,
right.
Hey, since you're doing this, we're acknowledging that you put time into that, and we're going to maybe reserve a little bit of your time for that.
Yeah, that works out nice.
So Peter, you're the solution lead for Microsoft?
Yep.
What is that entail?
I do all AWS
stuff that Chad's doing?
Everything AWS all the time. Oh wait, no, just kidding. What does that entail? It's really supporting the business unit, the Microsoft people, helping stay on top of technology, same way as Chad is. A little bit different blend because it's not quite as bleeding edge, but it does change every 6 months, whether you want it to or not. And then, helping out with actual building SDG's Microsoft business, right? So getting, people ready for their gigs, doing statements of work and working with that, doing estimates, going out on sales calls when asked, those kinds of things. Yeah, it's really kind of how it's going to be. I think going forward, it'll help out, get some of that time carved out. So maybe, it's not all doing IT support, statements of work and everything else in my spare time, right? So are you dealing a lot with the Azure, like their whole cloud ecosystem, or is it specific to a certain set of tooling in Microsoft? Because if you say I'm the Microsoft solution lead, that's a lot. Right? Like, you could be the guy that writes Word macros, or you could be responsible for like literally Don't let that word macro information leak out, because I'll be writing word macros all the time. No, I mean, for the most part, our Microsoft group has sort of been focused on the desktop app development, right? Or the web application development. But obviously everything goes to the cloud, so we're keeping up to date on Azure and those offerings at the same time. I'm fluent in both AWS and Azure. I wouldn't say I'm a native speaker yet of either one because time constraints, but I can certainly help out whichever team, whichever side needs help. So, and then just staying on top of it all, right? And that's kind of the hard parts. Somebody's going to ask the hard question, like, what should we use for this?
Yeah.
Got to have an answer and an opinion, which I think helps a lot.
Yeah, you guys have been kind of following the same path as, at least from what I've seen. Peter, you did my tech interview and all that stuff. And as a consultant, it's having somebody to lean on, having that knowledge to tap into is so helpful. It's such a big deal. Peter, write me an Excel formula for this, please, because I can't quite get it. And 10 minutes later, there it is. True story.
That's right.
Back to AWS stuff. You've got the architecture. What was that called? The
well-architected.
The well-architected, the modernization. Is there any other chunks of AWS that we're diving into?
Those are the two big ones right now from a partner perspective. We've got a lot of work to do with this app modernization one that we're trying to get knocked out. And then the well-architected one, like I said, is already underway. I think we're going to probably pursue some other of those technical competencies. Like I said, RDS is probably the next one we'll do. And just any services that we use a lot, right? All the common ones. Because having those helps with, we use them a lot. That means our customers use them a lot. So if we have the competency in that technology, that helps give them the confidence that, we'll do a good job at that, right? So.
And even if the consultant that's out there isn't a pro at RDS, there's a group of consultants to fall back and ask the hard questions about and get help with, right?
Right. That's a big part of the power of SDG, right?
Right.
If you have a question that's maybe not right in your wheelhouse for your customer, you can reach out and ask a whole army of experts that have done this for a long time. Hey guys, I'm looking to evaluate whatever. What do you suggest? What do we normally use? That kind of thing. Because we do have a lot of customers that, especially going into the cloud, that's part of why we're there, is they're like, I look at that drop down list of services and it's huge. Where do I start? Which services should we use for what we're trying to do? We don't know where we're worried about security. How does that work in the cloud? Things like that, where they just want to feel comfortable that they're doing it right and in a safe way, Well,
I think there was a lot of cloud hesitation for a long time, but enough time has passed and things have gotten really tightened up in that space. But also, developers and consultants have gained a lot of experience, which kind of wasn't there before because everything was so new. So I think you see that confidence in the cloud ramping up.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a big part of where we come in, though, is like you said, we had a lot of companies that were hesitant to do it, and that lasted for quite a while, right? I mean, when I look back at the first time I looked at AWS, I think it was like 2008. But all of a sudden we kind of got to this point where they realized, well, we should do it. Everybody's moving and we should start building our new stuff in the cloud. A lot of customers have made that transition, but they're still nervous because they're like, we should do it, but we've never done it. So we need a little help here. And I think that's where we come in, because I see a lot of that, like confidence problems, right? But we help them get there, right? That's a big part of our job, is not just come in and help them build it, but then kind of do a good transition of, hey, now your people have worked on it for a year or 18 months or whatever it is, and they're confident, and we can kind of do our exit. And
we've, the case studies, show that we've kind of proved it out.
Yep. Those are success stories where we helped a customer create their vision and then handed it off to them.
That's awesome.
Rocking back and forth because I'm out of questions. I think we talked too fast.
Java 21.
We can talk about Java 21. I'm super pumped.
Let me ask this. What is the key thing that Java 21 brings that you've been looking forward to?
Garbage collection has gotten even better. That is exciting.
What does that mean?
The process by which it goes and identifies unused objects and cleans up memory and releases memory back to the OS. Every single release of Java, they seem to make incremental upgrades to it, and they have all sorts of strategies on how to best do it. And I forgot exactly, and they always brand it as a certain thing, right?
Right.
But I think this time, actually, I think a while ago, they got rid of the concept of, I don't know, Chad, if you remember, but there used to be generations within memory, like young gen and, old gen and all these things. And it was an object would move from young gen to old gen, and then an old gen, it would get cleaned up and blah, blah, blah. And I think they got away from that concept completely. And I think this is the final nail in the coffin of some of that. And our job used to be, like, as Java developers, I spent as much time tweaking garbage collection settings as I did writing code on some projects. It felt like, because it was alchemy. Like, you didn't necessarily always know. And then once you got it dialed in just perfect for the version of the code base that you're releasing, somebody would do something, and then all of the meticulously tuned heap size settings and garbage collection parameters and relations between young gen and old gen that you meticulously put into your startup string, it was all meaningless. And so later versions of Java, I haven't had to think about garbage collection in a long time. And I think now they've finally just almost all but eliminated the need for all of that meticulous tweaking, which is great. And I could be completely wrong. Maybe there's some nerd out there that's really still at the command line tweaking like the stack size and the heap size and then the individual. Also, maybe not.
I don't believe that there are. And like you said, garbage collections come so far from where it, happened when Java first came out. And Microsoft had the same problem going along the way too, because I'm guessing they may have looked at the same research papers or something to develop the same concept as, getting it right and not getting it right. And so, but it was still better than writing over the top of some memory that you hadn't disposed of and corrupting everything in C++, right?
Yeah.
Well, it took a long time to realize that dream, right? Like, this was the whole thing. It's like, hey, you don't have to manage your memory anymore like you do in C++. And here we are. That was 1995.
Right.
Yeah. We're still writing tablets.
We made it, 2023.
We're still talking about it, but yeah, just barely, right?
The old days. I was a waiter in 1995. Sorry.
I was not a waiter in 1995. I was starting my job then.
A blackjack dealer, talking about 1995 jobs.
That's right.
Yeah, 1995.
I was just starting college.
I thought you were going to say elementary school, and I was really going to feel old. But
no, I'm one of the old guys, but apparently not that old. I'm with friends here.
But all right, so I'll say the words.
Any parting thoughts before we shut her down?
Yeah, I will say I'm actually excited about this. I'm excited for Chad's additional responsibilities as solution lead for a couple of reasons. One, I think it's going to provide opportunities for Chad to work with a lot more people within the organization. I think you're probably going to become one of the de facto guys to help with proposals, right, for AWS work. And as part of that, that means you're going to probably reach out to folks for references and, implementation details for work we've done similar to that. It's going to expose you to a lot of people at SDG, maybe people that you haven't worked with before. And if you hadn't had the chance to work with Chad before, you're going to be delighted because it's a blast. I know I'm
surprised you say that after this week. I've been bugging you nonstop.
I was just going to say, even though our current experience with filling out the questionnaire that AWS presents us for the MAP program, it's actually secretly I'm enjoying the experience of doing it with you because I look at the questions that are asked and I'm like, I don't know what that means. And I feel like I'm the idiot. And when you say, I don't know what this means, I'm like, oh my God, thank God. Right. Because I thought when I see this stuff, I thought I was the stupid one. And it turns out I'm probably still stupid, but I don't feel so lonely now. So I'm excited for the folks that are going to get the opportunity to work with you because of your role. And I'm excited for the opportunities that are going to become available to us by having like an actual lead, like an identified like go-to guy for some of this stuff. That's all exciting. That's great stuff. Like, 3 parting thoughts. I'm sorry.
I'll just jump in and say, I think I look forward to seeing where our partnership goes with Amazon, where AWS goes. All of these services, these cloud services, are really pushing. They're pushing hard now, and it's super exciting to be involved in that life right now, where there's a new thing every coming up. It reminds me of the old days when client server maybe was coming into its forefront from mainframe or whatever else. So it's a fun time. Looking forward to it. Kyle, how about you?
It's just there's a lot of energy, and it's exciting to see it with this stuff happening, and it's exciting to see how we're kind of going about kind of new that new structure and gaining that knowledge, that focus on not just getting a cert, to check a box, kind of developing that knowledge, because you just awareness of all the services, all the capabilities, things like that is huge. Especially, you get into platform selection or service selection, things like that, having that experience, having that organizational knowledge. And that's all kind of being gained more and more through the process we're going through of kind of how the partnership and the certifications and all that. So that's exciting to see. There's just a lot of positive energy behind it going on, and I think it's elevating everybody. That's my parting thought.
Very true.
Yeah, I don't have much, man. I'm excited too. I hope I can make a difference, right? That's all I'm trying to do. So,
it's all on your shoulders. You're the one. We've chosen you. So good luck. We're with you.
Well, at least I've got you guys behind me.
That's right.
Absolutely. All right. Well, with that, I think we'll just shut her down and say goodbye, everybody.
All right.
Bye, everybody.
See you guys.
That's good. Thanks.
Goodbye.
Chad, don't go.
Solution Design Group is a digital product consultancy in Minneapolis. Check us out on the web at solutiondesign.com or look for us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram at Solution Design Group.